Up logo with black and white pictures of cowboys and cowgirls and factory workers making boots, and text on screen that reads, presented by, and the Justin logo. Text on screen that reads, featuring Courtenay DeHoff, the Fancy Lady Cowgirl.
Welcome to the Kick Your Boots Up podcast. I'm so excited for this episode. This is the one and only Courtenay DeHoff. She's the Fancy Lady Cowgirl. That's probably what you guys know her as.
Video of a young blonde woman wearing a red blazer and headphones hosting a podcast in a studio on the left side of the screen, and a woman wearing a beige coat and a black cowboy hat on the right side of the screen talking back and forth to the host. An on-screen brown graphic frame with the Kick Your Boots Up podcast logo in the bottom center and the Justin logo on the bottom right corner.
I know her as the girl from Kansas that was at the OSU rodeo team, Oklahoma State University, that is. Go Pokes.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful to have Courtenay on, and this is going to be a really good episode to talk about her story and all things Fancy Lady Cowgirl and all the different hats she wears. So Courtenay, thank you for being on today.
Thanks for having me.
You know, something that's unique about you is you have worn a lot of different hats growing up and then also now in the industry as well. Let's talk about your background a little bit. How did you get started in the industry?
Yeah, I was really blessed in the fact that I was born into it. My mom and dad both came from agriculture. My grandparents are still heavily involved in agriculture. So it was all I knew. I tell people I'm just a little cowgirl from Kansas. Now people see me sometimes as a network television host or as the Fancy Lady Cowgirl. And they're like, how did you achieve all those things? And I say, I'm just a little cowgirl from Kansas. I grew up riding horses, was heavily involved in high school rodeo, went to the national high school finals. I was on the college rodeo team at Oklahoma State. And we also showed Angus cattle all over the country. So I just had this really amazing, beautiful childhood, and just a lot of credit to my mom and dad because they spent a lot of hours in the truck. They spent a lot of money on my sister and I. But, my dad always said, he goes, I always knew where my kids were.
Oh, that is so true. And even you can relate to this being from Kansas, small town. I feel like everyone always knew everything about you before you even got home. So it was totally
Always.
fine, right?
Yeah.
And let's talk a little bit more about your family then. Your mom and dad are very important to you. And obviously, like you said, have just invested heavily. But I also love how involved your mom is still as an adult as well. You guys have an awesome, awesome, awesome friendship. Talk to us about your family and your parents in particular.
Yeah, my mom and dad, they're just, I can't say enough great things about them. They gave my little sister and I just such a magical childhood. And it's one of those things, as a kid growing up in it, I didn't appreciate it, right? I had to leave it behind to really be able to come back and appreciate it. And so, yeah, my mom and dad, they did a lot for my sister and I. My dad spent a lot of money on good horses and good cattle. But again, like he said, I always knew it was an investment that would pay off in the future. It would create great adults, which my sister and I think are pretty good adults. Yeah, my mom, we're best friends. We have a lot of fun, and, shout out to my mom. She was a professional truck driver literally for 30 years with my sister and I. And 2 years ago, my mom at, 55 years old, got her first horse. And now she is tearing up the road, going to cuttings with her little horse, Tio. And, I'm just really proud of her for taking that step because it was scary. She's like, I don't want to go by myself. What if I'm terrible? I'm too old. I can't afford a horse. Like, what if nobody helps me? And, shout out also to the Cutting Horse Association because they just scoop up people like my mom and take care of them. And so she's having a blast.
And that's what I really love about the rodeo industry is they just really want the Western industry to stay alive as a whole. So they're very inclusive. They let everyone in. And you're right. Your mom should have her own podcast episode as well, because she's just, I mean, she does on your podcast, on the Cowgirl Problems podcast. She's so inspiring. But let's talk about your rodeo days. She was along for that. She got to kind of take the back seat. Now, obviously, you said she's getting to do her own thing. But let's talk about your rodeo days in particular with the high school rodeo, college rodeo, all of it.
Yeah, no, I loved high school rodeo. I ran barrels and tied goats primarily. I tried to pole bend. I wasn't very good. And so those were kind of my three events in high school. I started breakaway roping in college, which was really fun. I got to go to the WPRA finals and finished miraculously one year in the top 10 with, I got to be in a picture with people like Jackie Hobbs Crawford. And I was like, this is the coolest thing that ever happened to me. But yeah, I grew up, rodeoing. And another thing that was sort of important. And back then I think I was sort of like, I'm a cowgirl. Like I'm a barrel racer. I'm a goat tire. I am not a rodeo queen. Okay, y'all. But I did. I ran, I was the Kansas high school rodeo queen, actually 2 years in a row.
I didn't know that.
I was first runner up and second runner up back to back. So I never got to be the National High School Rodeo Queen, but I look back at that experience and man, you want to talk about preparing me for my television career, preparing me to go out into the world and live in places like Dallas and New York City and these big cities. I credit, the High School Rodeo Association a lot. And I credit that queening, teaching me how to speak in front of an audience, how to have very well worded conversations, how to answer tough questions about rodeo and animal welfare. So shout out to all the rodeo queens out there, because I was one of you.
That is actually so inspiring. I had no idea, and I feel bad. I was actually the National High School Rodeo Queen in
Oh my
2014,
gosh,
the Oklahoma
amazing.
High School Rodeo Queen. So I am like in awe. I just fall more in love with you literally every day.
Congratulations. That's so
No,
cool.
no, thank you. But you're exactly right. You had such a good point. I'm going to derail our conversation just a little bit because it's so important to know you truly were prepared for life. Not only the scholarships that help set you up through these organizations, but also, just like you said, you doing news and TV alone, that helped you with knowing how to do your hair, how to do your makeup, how to have a certain look. And then even just everyday people having interview skills, how to conduct yourself. So what do you think is the hardest part as a woman in the industry that's has so much control in a primarily male dominant world of like you lead interviews all the time? So really quick, and then we'll get back on the conversation. What do you think is the hardest part about all of that?
I think the hardest part about being a woman in the Western industry is the pressure that I put on myself. Sometimes I walk into rooms, when I started back in 2020, I had the privilege of doing some television work with the PBR, and I was a nervous wreck because I was like, oh my gosh, these guys are going to see this girl walk into Madison Square Garden for an Unleash the Beast tour and be like, who is this? This girl's never ridden a bull. She doesn't probably know anything about bull riding. And that was all on me because I'm telling you what, those men at that level, they scooped me up. They were professional. They answered every question. And now, I'm on the other side of it. I'm a bull owner. Fast forward a few years later. And, I think especially at the elite level, I've never really sort of been made to feel like I didn't fit in or was accepted. I think in those moments when I do feel that way, it's me. I'm putting that sort of imposter syndrome in my own mind. Now, are there people in the industry who aren't as welcoming? Absolutely. That's with anything.
Yes.
But I sort of just have learned now, I just walk in like I own the place and they treat me with respect and I treat them with respect.
Without a doubt. And that shows time and time again. I know I watch you a lot on Ride TV. I know you do a lot for AQHA World Show, all the different avenues that you have. You just have a way about you on camera that you have just understood you're taking up space. You are owning the area that you're in. And that is why people keep looking towards you, I personally feel. But I want to back up a little bit. You talked about owning a PBR bull. I'm a big fan of Top Dollar. I think it's so cool that he's such a big and vicious bull, whenever it comes to getting on and riding, bucking for 8 seconds and all that. But he's also so fun. You can go, I see all the videos all the time of people scratching him, petting him. Tell us about that. That's got to be such a fun avenue for you.
Top Dollar is quite the character and we love him so dearly. I say I'm one part of the ownership team. Katie and Laramie of Hook and W Ranch. My mom and dad are part of the ownership team, and then our friend Peggy Van Cleef. So I always like to point out there's 4 women on the ownership team of Top Dollar, which I think is really cool. But yeah, Top Dollar is he is a special creature. I mean, he truly is probably once in a lifetime. I came onto the ownership team when he was a yearling. I didn't know anything. I had come off of the PBR, they had watched me on television, Katie and Laramie, and Katie sent me a DM. I was at the high school finals, I think, working for Ride Pass, and I get this DM from Katie, who I didn't know. And she was like, hey, we own and raise bucking bulls. Do you want to own one? I was like, yeah, no. Like, what? No, I don't. So I became the owner of part owner of Top Dollar. And it's been this really incredible journey. And I have to give a shout out to Katie and Laramie. The reason that I said yes was not because I was like, yeah, I'm going to own a PBR bucking bull someday. He was one. We had no idea. I mean, Laramie did. I didn't. We had no idea what he was going to become, but they said, we just really want to show that people from all walks of life can be a stock contractor, that women have a place on the bucking chutes. And I was like, all right, done, sold. I want to be a part of this. And I said, we're going to document this. And Katie and Laramie said, yeah, let's document it. Let's document the journey. He went on to become the ABI yearling world champion in 2020. Last year, he made his PBR debut in Fort Worth. In January of this year, he ran up the tunnel at Madison Square Garden. And it has been the coolest, proudest bull mother experience of my life. And yeah, Top Dollar, he's great. He was the high marked bull in Albany, New York with a 46. We were so proud. But then the minute he's done, he's like back in the back pen. He's like, all right, I guess I'll take a nap. He's looking for Katie because Katie gives him scratches. He likes snacks. I mean, he's just truly a kind animal.
I'm so glad that you mentioned Madison Square Garden a few times because for you, you had kind of a weird experience in New York and you kind of started questioning your identity. And then that also sparked something beautiful for you to create Fancy Lady Cowgirl. But talk about your time in New York, that full circle moment and how it feels now knowing that you could walk to New York and own it if you wanted to.
Yeah. So I spent a decade in the television and entertainment industry doing mainstream TV. So hard news, lifestyle and entertainment, red carpets, you name it. I did not dress like this. Most of the people I worked with did not even know my background. Most of them didn't
Wow.
even know where I came from. And that was because I was embarrassed of it. Because I was told very early on in my career by agents and managers, they were like, look, if you ever want anyone to take you seriously in the world of TV, that hat on your head, cute, but like save it for a country concert on the weekends. And I was young and I really wanted to be successful in television. So I was
You
like,
were
okay,
hungry.
I
Yeah.
have to choose. I can be the cowgirl from Kansas or I can be this
Mm.
great television host. And I decided to be a television host. And that literally spanned a decade of my young professional life. But I finally got to the point where I was like, man, something is missing. You can take the cowgirl like out of the cowgirl lifestyle, but you can't take it out of the person. And
No.
trust me, I tried. And so I finally sort of started embracing that more and more. Full disclosure, I went to New York. I always wanted to live and work in New York. I wanted to be
Wow.
on TV in New York. So I thought, well, nobody's hiring me to go work in New York. So I'm just going to go to New York. And then if I'm there, maybe they can't ignore me. And I had an
That's right.
agent there at the time and I didn't do it. I didn't get any jobs. There was no work. And, the PBR, I had pursued the PBR for almost 6 months because I really respected that the PBR understood the importance of tapping into mainstream audiences, right?
Yes.
The PBR is really, really great at, okay, we're gonna put this on a mainstream network. We're gonna
Mhm.
allow people from all walks of life to turn on their TV and learn and watch about the sport of bull riding. And I wanted to be in on
Yes.
that. So I stalked them essentially. And January of 2020, I got to do some work with them on Ride Pass, which was incredible. My first gig was 3 nights live inside Madison Square Garden. And, we were doing, not only
Wow.
was I live on Ride Pass, we were taking in-house hits. So I was interacting with like Matt and Clint. And I mean, it was a lot. And I look back and I'm like, the fact that I survived that, you know, first of all, because there's so much happening. I have producers in my ears and they've got pyro and they're loading bulls and there's cowboys. And it was just the most incredible experience. And so it was really special because I walked into Madison Square Garden with a microphone in my hand and I had a cowboy hat on my head. And that was just like such a full circle moment for someone like me who had hidden that part of me because I was told that's what I had to do to fit in. And Fancy Lady Cowgirl was really born out of my frustration that I didn't quite fit into the world of television and entertainment because I was a cowgirl. But then, on the cowgirl side of things, when they would see that I was living in places like New York and that I was like dressing up and going to New York Fashion Week and doing things like that, some people in agriculture were like, I'm not sure she's a real cowgirl because like she
Mm.
doesn't ride a horse and she doesn't live on a ranch. And so Fancy Lady Cowgirl is really just my way of celebrating and creating this community that says, look, being a cowgirl is a state of mind. It's not how you dress. It's not where you live. It's not what you do. It's not your religion. It's not your skin color, right? Like being a cowgirl is a state of mind. It's about living a legendary life. And I think I think cowgirls are legends. And so my purpose with Fancy Lady Cowgirl is to just bust the gates wide open and say, look, everyone is welcome in this lifestyle. If you have the cowgirl mindset or the cowgirl code, as I call it, right? Courage, originality, worthiness, grit, all of these things that make a cowgirl, then you get to be one. You get to embrace it in your own way.
And I love that you put on events with, we got to shout out Sarah Bondenkamp too, one of my good
Yes.
friends as well, that you get to put on events with people like her who also have such a state of mind as well that's inclusive and encouraging to anyone in any walk of life. So we've got to talk about that a little bit too.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. I've had 2 Fancy Lady Cowgirl events. The first one, they would have never been a thing had it not been for Sarah, another
Oh.
empowering woman. And Sarah came to me with the idea and she's like, hey, I said, oh my gosh, this sounds like a great idea, but I have no idea how to put on an event or what to do. And she's like, well, I'll help you. And so we partnered on that first event, and it was amazing. And I had another one last year, 100 women from 3 countries, 17 states, from all walks of life. Some of them were 6th, 7th generation ranchers. Some of them, were professional rodeo athletes. And then some of them really didn't have any connection to the Western way of life other than that they loved it and appreciated it and wanted to be at the table with other like-minded women. And so, yeah, it's been really cool. Fancy Lady Cowgirl events, there will be more coming. They are a lot of
Yay.
work, I will admit. Everyone's like, when's the next one? And I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing next week.
I'm still
So,
recovering from the other
true.
one. Yes, yeah, that's awesome. I know one of our marketing manager here at Justin got to go, and she said it was just an incredible experience. And I want to talk about that a little bit when we get to the talking about fashion, because she was blown away with the way that the many different ways you could wear a wild rag. But before we move on to that, where do you see the future of Fancy Lady Cowgirl going? What are your future plans?
Yeah, my biggest goal with Fancy Lady Cowgirl is to really get it out so that it seeps into more mainstream audiences. I love agriculture. I love the Western community, but it's always for me been about something bigger. Like, I want to touch people far removed from the industry and show them how special the cowgirl and cowboy way of life is, welcome them in, show them that we're kind, wonderful people who are, feeding the world. Like, that's really been my goal with Fancy Lady Cowgirl. So obviously I do a lot of keynote speaking. I want to get on, TED Talk stages. I want to get on these mainstream stages so that I can interact with people from, more mainstream walks of life. I had the opportunity to do an event in Dallas a few months ago, and I got on the celebrity panel. I'm not really sure
Ooh.
how, but it was like me, a Big Brother star, a Dallas housewife, these women from like all different walks of life. They ate up the cowboy hat and the clothes, and they're like, oh my gosh, we're going to get a cowboy hat. And it was just so fun. And something that never ceases to amaze me is how amazed and thrilled and excited people are to just be around it. Like, a girl in a cowboy hat. People are like, can we just take a picture with you? I'm like, they didn't know who I was. They're like, can we take a picture with you? I'm like, yeah, sure. And so I guess that's really my ultimate goal, is to just sort of embrace and celebrate the cowgirl way of life with mainstream audiences all over the world.
And you're well on your way to do that. Obviously, you've paved the way in a huge way, but also I can't wait to see how the future ends up for you. But kind of moving on to the fashion side of it, the staples of a Western outfit, which is the hat, the cowboy boots. For you, wild rags, love them. Let's talk a little bit about your fashion and how you decide to style outfits. I know you can dress an outfit up and down, like you can literally be on the buck and shoots and then also in the field, and then also go to an event to speak the same day. And you just have the best way of doing that. So talk to us a little bit
Yeah.
about that.
Thank you. Well, I'm looking very Western today. I was feeling Western vibes, but my staples always for an outfit are cowboy hat and the cowboy boots, and I typically always have a wild rag on. It seemed a little much with the fringe today, so I'm not wearing wild rag, and then a blazer. Anytime I'm on TV, anytime I'm keynoting, 98% of the time I'm in a blazer. It's just like, it's what I feel the most powerful in. I can walk into a room, it's professional, but it's businessy and classy at the same time. And so those are kind of like my go-to pieces. But Western fashion is whatever you want to make it. It's I always see these conversations when the NFR starts, and I'm not perfect. Like, I've been the girl that was like, oh my gosh, what are people wearing to the rodeo? But now I have such an appreciation for girls who maybe show up to a rodeo or something in an untraditional outfit, because I'm like, oh, that's cowgirl, that's courage, that's individual out. Like, she is outwardly expressing what it really means to be a cowgirl. And so I'm cheering those girls on. But yeah, it's whatever you want to make it. I was in Europe earlier this year and wearing a cowboy hat under the Eiffel Tower. From the neck down, I looked like a lot of the Europeans in my long black coat and my whatever. And then I had on my cowboy hat. And it's just, it's embracing it in whatever way makes sense to you. And you don't even have to wear a cowboy hat. Maybe you're not into them. Maybe you don't like the way they look. That's fine. Don't wear one. You can still embrace sort of the Western lifestyle and the Western traditions. And I'll tell you what, like, Western is cool. Cowgirl is cool. They're wearing it to New York Fashion Week, or they're wearing it on the streets in Europe. Like, it is thriving.
Oh, yes. And I'm so glad you brought up your Europe trip too, because the ladies here in the marketing department at Justin, we were so in awe of everything that you got to do there and the boldness that you took. But also, you got to see, you ran into, and you didn't even know. I think at the time it was Tyler Hubbard with Florida Georgia Line, right?
No, so here is what happened. We have this amazing evening. It's New Year's Eve. We go to dinner. So my friend Jenna Paulette, who I know you all know,
Love her.
her and her sisters happen to be in Paris at the same time. So we're like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. So we get together, we have dinner. We're like, let's go drink champagne under the Eiffel Tower. Like,
Oh,
how very French. So we
yes.
go, we have this amazing time. We get ready to go home. We did not realize that the trains were shutting down. Well,
Oh,
so my friend who I was with, Alex and I, we're like, I don't even know. We're 5 miles from our apartment. We had to walk. I was in cowboy boots. So we're walking hours and hours and hours. We're walking. And I see down the street a cowboy hat. Okay. That's pretty unique in your, and I know it's not Jenna because I know what hat she, and I'm like, there are 3 whole cowboys in Paris right now. Like, what are the chances? And I told my friend Alex, I said, video this, it's a cowboy in Paris. And I went up and I
it's the
tapped him.
one. It's my husband.
Yeah.
No.
And I tapped him and I said, I like your outfit or something. He's like, hey, yeah, I like it. And I'm like over it. Like all I wanted to do was say hi. I'm like, hi, bye. I walk off and Alex is like still videoing and she's like, where are you from? And he's like, Florida. And I'm like, okay, I'll be polite. I'm like, so what do you do? And he's like, I'm a country musician. I'm like, of course. I'm
Everyone.
thinking like everybody, I was clueless. And I posted it on Instagram just because I was like, look, a cowboy in Paris. And, we're 7 hours ahead. So I wake up the next morning. And I'm like, what has happened? I have DMs that are like, you know who that is, right? I'm like, no, I don't. Is this somebody that I should know? I know their music. I love Florida Georgia Line, but like,
Yes.
I just, on the streets of Paris, like how unexpected. I had no idea who
It's
it
hard to
was.
make that connection.
I had
Yeah.
no idea. I feel bad. I apologize to be a
Well, you know what? That's like a once in a lifetime story, I feel like. Because what are the odds of all that happening? Even Jenna being there at the same time, that is incredible in itself. And there's just so many things that I could pick your brain about. But unfortunately, we're out of time for today. But your social media is so inspiring and so entertaining. I know especially around COVID, I really fell in love with the jogger watch just because it was so funny, the things that you would
Yes.
do. And there was the whole saga with that leaving notes on the guy's truck guy, if you're
Chevy
out there.
Gate.
I still don't know. Yeah, the Chevy Gate. Yes. So anyways, where can people find you? How can they keep up with you? Because they're going to want to, and they're going to have questions after this too.
Yeah. So everything is sort of housed on my website, CourtenayDeHoff.com. You can learn more there. And it's just Court DeHoff on Instagram, TikTok, Courtenay DeHoff on Facebook.
Very nice. And you want to make sure and say the Courtenay, the spelling of your name too.
Oh, yeah. That's my mother's fault. It's the French spelling, ENAY. No, we're not French. So
Well, very nice. Courtney, it's been so good getting to speak with you. I learned a lot about you and discovered things that I didn't even know. And here I am, been following you for years. So thank you for everything you do in the industry. You continue to pave the way. And I really, really appreciate that you keep the cowgirl in it. You keep Fancy Lady Cowgirl alive and well. And we are so, so thankful for you and everything that you do in the industry.
oh my gosh. Well, thank you for having me. And thank you to Justin for just empowering all things Western. We couldn't do it without people like you.
Oh, well, thank you. You're awesome. I hope you have a great rest of your day, rest of your week, and we will continue to follow along on social media.